Today's conversation is with Donna Bowling. Donna is a video marketing strategist, a podcast host, a content coach. She is one of my clients. And most importantly, she is also one of my dear friends. And that's not always the case when you're a service provider. Oftentimes, by nature of what we do, it's a business transaction. And if you're lucky, you're cheering for your client and you're excited about the project. But not every client becomes a close friend. So when Donna and I talk about our love for each other and how excited we are for each other, that is sincere. And I wanted to share that before you even hear us speak, because what you hear and what you see with Donna here in our conversation is also what you get when you follow her on social media or visit her website or have the privilege of working with her. And one of the things that has been most fascinating to me about getting to know Donna and seeing her trajectory as a business owner, and also getting to know the behind the scenes friendship that we have cultivated, I can tell you that this is a woman who is among the most optimistic and positive and resilient people that I have ever met in my life. And in this conversation, you will hear about some of the real triumphs and the highs in her journey, both as a business owner and somebody who worked inside the world of Hollywood. We talk extensively about that career path as a mom, but also just as a human who is navigating this world, kind of dealing with social media algorithms the way we all are, dealing with disruptions in our business model as we all are. And there were a few moments in this conversation that were real takeaways and impacted me in a positive way. And I hope they will for you as well. Now, I won't spoil them, but in this conversation, you'll hear how Donna has been able to take advantage of different times in the world and different things that are happening in our marketplace, but also, again, just impacting us as a human race. You'll also hear about her incredibly exciting career as a casting director in Hollywood and why she ultimately decided to leave that job. She's going to tell you about some of the people that she met along the way. Many of them are celebrities and names you know. Thank goodness she was able to capture some of them in real time in her very early podcasting days. That's one of the most fun stories that we get to hear. So I can't wait for you to hear that. But also just people in her life, both family members and friends, that have helped her become the person that she is today. And as you'll hear me say over and over, one thing I know about Donna is that where she is today is not where she will be tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now. And I am so thankful to be on the ride with her. And I could not wait to bring her story and her experience to you. So I can't wait for you to listen to Donna. If you are interested in connecting with Donna, and you of course should, you can learn everything at donnabowling.com. The podcast that we mentioned multiple times in today's show is Daily Dose of Donna, which you can find linked on her website. You'll also find all of her social platforms, including Instagram and TikTok, where she is posting every single day. And it is some of the best content out there. So with no further ado, meet my dear friend, Donna Bowling. Hi, Donna. Welcome to Hard Costs.
You know how excited I am to be here with you, Katy. You're one of my favorite people in the entire world. I am so excited.
You guys, that brings me, my love language, Donna, is words of affirmation. And so hearing you say that, somebody that I equally love and look up to and get so excited to talk about and talk to, thank you so much for sharing that. And people who just heard me introduce you, they actually know that we work together, that we have kind of been in the highs and lows of each other's businesses. I consider you a friend first and a client partner second. Do you feel like that as well?
I mean, I always say this because I talk about you like probably too often. And by the way, I will say my love language is words of affirmation too. So like we just need to constantly send each other love notes, which we do in the form of Taylor Swift TikToks. But I will say that you and I, I've really, and we can talk about this, but I've really minimized my whole like team. I mean, I went when I first started working with you, I had multiple people working with me, and now it's just you and I can't let go of you. And not only it's because you do such an amazing job for me, but also because I do feel like you are a confidant that I can go to and be like, what should I do? I'm struggling with this. And it's not coming from just a place of like, well, how's as someone that works with you, it's coming from a place of here's where I would handle this if it happened to me in my own life, etc.
I love that you shared it and that you articulated it in that way, because one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast and start sharing these stories is that, in my experience as somebody who has worked in corporate, run my own business, helped others scale their own businesses, it can be not just lonely and isolating. We've talked about that, but it can really feel like, is there anybody else that has ever gone through this? Is there anyone else who has made the hard decision to let go of a team member, or to get rid of a product or an offer, or a project that seemed like it was a good idea, or I was having a lot of fun with, but wasn't really panning out? What are some of the times in your life or your business when you've experienced a really hard decision like that?
I mean, it's happened so many times in various ways, but I think that there's like this weird trend, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think there is a little bit of a trend that happened in the last few months with a lot of, quote unquote solopreneurs, people like us who look, my business has shifted so many times, and you know this. And, my husband just laughs like every couple of years, you just wake up and decide, I'm going to start a new venture. And maybe this is how I'll be until the day I die. But I'm like, well, you're lucky it's not you. You're lucky I'm not waking up and starting a new husband. So I will say that a few years ago, a lot of people in my space, not myspace.com, but in
That too, we're old enough to
my
know that
space.
platform.
I work for myspace.com. Actually, I'm bringing back Friendster.
You're Tom.
So
You're actually Tom from MySpace. You've really had a
can
glow
you
up.
tell? I mean, we're wearing the same outfit. So I think a lot of people in this kind of coaching and consulting space had massive growth a few years ago. And that's the experience I had. In about 2020, 2021, my business exploded and it got so big so fast. And I got really, really lucky. But because of that, my income was high, very high. And in my mind, I was like, it's only going up from here. Like, there's no way that this is going to ever slow down. Nothing's going to change. So, of course, let me bring them all on. I brought a podcast producer on. At my height, I had a podcast producer. I had someone writing my emails. I had someone, not you, this is before I knew you. I had someone, an OBM, like an online business manager who was handling, I don't even like all the kind of like keeping me on track. I had a virtual assistant. I had someone doing obviously like, I had someone doing podcast content for me, like podcast content marketing. I had someone I'm probably missing someone else. I was revamping my website every 5 seconds. Like, I literally was hiring people. Oh, and I had coaches. So many coaches, right? So I was spending so much money on my business, and it was in a time where my business was making so much money. So it just felt like obviously duh. And then things shifted all of a sudden in the end of like mid 2022, where I was like, something needs to change.
Mm.
And I had to take a hard look at my business and be like, what's going on here? Where do things need to shift? So yes,
What had led when you were
that's the
talking
long
when you were
answer.
talking about that climb, and the business was growing and money was coming in? What was there a particular platform or a project or something that had led to that? And if so, what all of a sudden caused it to stop performing and to drop off?
The pandemic was amazing for me. And I say that like some people have a very, very tricky time talking about like the benefits of the pandemic. And I'll tell you this, during 9/11, this is a kind of random story, but during 9/11, when the world was falling apart, when so many people were struggling, my stepdad had a company where he has army supplies. Like, he used to be a colonel in the Israeli army. So he had tents and army uniforms, et cetera, here in Los Angeles. And he sold gas masks, Israeli army gas masks. He sold them way before 9/11. Never sold them. Like, who's buying them, right? 9/11 made my stepdad a millionaire, a multimillion. I mean, it changed his entire life. So sometimes things happen where you have the right product at the right time. And I think what happened in this moment was I had just pivoted from working with actors right before the pandemic. I had just changed my business from working with actors to helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses online. Well, so what happened during the pandemic? Everyone started a business online or decided like, holy crap, I can't go into the office. Like, I need to do this online. And my I say my phone wasn't like didn't stop ringing, but let's be honest, my DMs, my emails, like it was nonstop. And then, so that was 2020. It was crazy, but 2021 took it even to a whole new level because of that app Clubhouse.
Mhm.
So Clubhouse was also an opportunity where I jumped in early, and a lot of people were anti, but I liked it. I liked Clubhouse was a social audio app for those people that don't know. And I always have the gift of gab. I'm able to talk. That's one thing I can do. And so I think it was a perfect storm. I was in there, I was hosting rooms, I was, taking the leap where a lot of people maybe were nervous to, like starting their own rooms, starting their own what they called clubs. I grew 25,000 followers on Clubhouse. My Instagram following tripled. My business was like I didn't have the bandwidth, to be honest. There wasn't enough of me at a moment there. So, I guess that.
Yeah, so if I think about your journey and fill in the gaps where maybe there are parts maybe I don't even know, but my understanding is and we're going to summarize here, but you came up as a casting agent. So you were working with, well-known celebrities and actors, and that was your career. You were winning awards, you were doing really well. At some point you pivoted, as you said, to helping people build their online businesses. You were able to, I think, kind of catch lightning in a bottle with some of these platforms. So, here's what I know about you. Clubhouse started to grow. You saw the opportunity, you seized it. TikTok started to grow, you saw the opportunity, you seized it. And even as we'll get to talking a little bit more, you are now able to, I think, really see what others maybe don't yet see potential in, even what you've been doing with YouTube. And just to give everybody a glance ahead, as I talked about in the intro, Donna is now the host of a wildly popular pop culture daily podcast. So that's a pretty big shift. And I don't even know what you will be later this year, let alone next year, because you have proven to be so resilient and so smart at shifting and iterating. But
Mm.
that's who you are now. And that's who you are becoming. Let's actually go in the Wayback Machine. Did little Donna expect to be in this industry? Did little Donna expect to say, here's who I am. I have a daily pop culture podcast and I help people grow their businesses? Or what did little Donna expect to do when she grew up?
Little Donna was obsessed with the entertainment industry, like the behind the scenes. Little like when I was a young kid, and this is so funny because I was just talking to someone yesterday on a podcast, and they asked something like, why pop culture? Or like, why you do I said, "You know what's so crazy? When I was 7 years old, 8 years old, my mom got me a tape recorder. I begged for it, right? I don't know if you remember back in the late 80s, right? The black tape recorder where the tape opens, like a
Oh, yes.
cassette,
It had
guys.
the
I don't
play and the
think,
record button on the same little thing, and if you accidentally
and
hit
you'd have to press
one,
them at the same time.
oh, yeah, you'd record over your mixtape, and it was a disaster. Yes, I remember the cassette player very well.
Such a disaster, so stressed out if like anyone yes, so I would walk around, my mom got me a little microphone that would, wired into this tape recorder, and I would walk around, and I'm not joking you, I would podcast, and I didn't know what podcasting was, and I have the tape, literally found it the other day, and it's sitting on a boombox right here, and I listened to myself, and Katie, when we're done with this podcast, I'm gonna play some of it for you, you're gonna die, because 'cause I'm like, today at school, da 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 da. Da." And then after school, we went to this restaurant, and this restaurant was so great and so fun. I was like journaling, but
Donna, you were
audio.
vlogging before vlogs or blogs were even a thing. That it somehow both shocks me that you were so ahead of the curve, and yet knowing you, it surprises me not even a little bit that you would have been doing
I
that.
didn't even
I
know what I
love
was
that.
doing. I think I just liked talking. I always got in trouble for talking too much in school. And so my mom probably was like, get her to shut up and talk to herself, right? No one listened to these tapes. It's not like there was a place for me to put them. It's not like I sat my family down at dinner to listen to it. But it's such an amazing moment in time because you're able to see, I always had this want to either share my feelings or thoughts. I didn't really know. And I did have a diary growing up, but so did most kids. Like a lot of girls, I think, had diaries. But I was never with a girl that could write a lot. I was the girl who could speak a lot. And so I did love entertainment. I loved watching TV. I loved being on sets. So my dad was a successful OBGYN in Beverly Hills, and he delivered a lot of celebrity kids. And so I remember when I was like probably 7, he delivered Jean Smart's baby. And Jean Smart is, like from Hacks, right? But at the
Absolutely.
time, she was on Designing Women. And my dad brought me and my sister, why? Still have no idea because Designing Women is not for a 7-year-old, but took us to a taping and we were on the floor. We weren't like in the audience, we were on the floor because it was Jean Smart's doctor, and we got to see this. And I remember seeing the cameras and seeing the set. And I didn't want to be an actress, but I was like, I need to be here. Like, I need to be here. And that's kind of what set me on that path. I was obsessed with, like, I would see Beverly Hills 90210 taping on the streets here in Los Angeles. And I would be like, like pull over my car with my mom, yell at her, get me out of the car. And it was 1990, 1991. So my mom literally would just like drop me off on the street. Like she was like, okay, I'll be back in an hour. I was 10 on Melrose, like watching Kelly Taylor drive up. Um, I just was obsessed with it. Going to live tapings when I was in 7th grade, my mom said, what do you want to do for your birthday? I said, go see a taping of Full House. Like this was my goal. So when I graduated college, I did get in the business in casting. And there's like a long story there, but you take my obsession with speaking, you take my obsession with, entertaining people, which I do. When I'm like at a party, I like making people laugh. That is something who I like, it is my personality. And then you take something I'm obsessed with, which is celeb gossip and reality TV and Vanderpump Rules. And I just want to talk about it all day. So it's kind of like a marriage of it all.
I love that story because I'd love to get your insights. You had access to celebrity culture. You were like pretty much living in the backyard of celebrity culture at an early age. And now it seems to me like you straddle the line between talking about and giving real commentary on celebrities' lives, but somehow not in even a mean way. I mean, I've seen you become friends with some of the people that are on these shows or that perhaps even listen to your podcast. What's your sense when you were a kid and you were, as you said, obsessed? Were you obsessed with the people and the actors or just kind of the life in the industry and maybe not particularly intimidated to meet or get to know the actors
I
themselves?
mean, I was a celeb crazed kid. Like I remember seeing Paula Abdul at a drugstore when I was, so young, and I ran up to her and she had pictures in her bag, like which was weird. She gave me a headshot and it said keep on dancing. And so like yes, I was just your typical like star-studded obsessed kid, but at the same time, it was more about the way things were being done, like the behind the scenes of it that I was interested. I was obsessed with Luke Perry. I had their pictures on my wall, like I would rip out from the magazines, all the 90210, Saved by the Bell. I was obsessed with that, yes. But for me, it was more just like I was always interested, like what happened when the camera turned off, right? Like, where did they go? What did they talk about? Like, there was no, and when we were growing up, there was no access to any of that. We would just have, Entertainment Tonight or whatever on TV. But like, you didn't get such inner access like we do now with social media and with all of that. I think for me, I just like hearing people's stories. I like knowing what's going on. I like doing the digging and the research and I like breaking the news. Like that's also kind of fun. I like being the one to tell my friend like, "Oh my god, you would die. You don't even know what happened." And now I have that ability through obviously the podcast, but then TikTok. And like TikTok is the most insane thing I've ever seen. TikTok is our new news, you
Yeah,
know?
it's interesting because I went to school for broadcast journalism and it was at a time
Right.
when the only way you could get that news, to your point, was, by sort of typical traditional news channels and news outlets. And now this idea of not even just citizen journalism, but the person in the front row of the Taylor Swift concert, literally in real time live streaming her screaming at the security guard and that becoming headline news and what we're all talking about. We don't have to wait for the reporter or the 6 o'clock news. And I think to your point, some of that access has really opened up maybe a better understanding too for the fact that even the celebrities that we're talking about are also real people with real lives. And I know your community, the dosers, have really kind of leaned into that as well. I'm now picturing little Donna with her little tape recorder and like the giant microphone, because I had that too. There was no wireless microphones. It was all like that big, like sports reporter microphone. So you go to college and you get into the world of casting. Tell me a little bit about that experience, what you loved, what some of the challenges were, because ultimately you left that job even though it seemed like you were doing well, it was what you had dreamed of, you're winning awards. Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, so I got into casting because, I always joke that my mom should be my agent, and shout out mom who will never listen to this podcast. She doesn't know how to find podcasts. She seriously, like she's the kind of woman that I'm like, you press the podcast app, and every time she's like, how do you, where do you find? She probably still doesn't know how to send an email. Okay, so she is always looking out for us, right? That's her personality, as any mom does, really, now that you think about it. But she was the person that, um, in fact, one of the guys, speaking of the gas mask story earlier, one of the guys who decided to also capitalize on the gas mask situation went to my stepdad, this Jewish guy. No one, my mom didn't know him, my stepdad didn't know him. His name is Eric Kritzer, and decides, I'm going to buy 1,000 gas masks and then resell them online. Ends up, this guy is a huge talent manager here in Los Angeles. He was representing Burt Reynolds and Ron Perlman and some of the big name, like older actors. I love Eric. Okay. So shout out to this guy who's still an incredibly talented entertainment manager. So I got an internship with him the summer before my senior year. And when you're working in a management office, you're selling, you're pitching, you're not buying, right? Like in the casting, people are coming to you and begging from you. Management is really tough. You're literally begging for people to give your client an opportunity. Now, they had huge clients. I think they had like Lucy Liu and like some really big names at that time. It was the days of headshots. Like we had a big wall with like shelves, and I would have to, my job was the intern, right? Like I was taking the headshots and sticking them in envelopes and sending them to the messenger who was driving it to the studio. Things changed so much so fast because then it became all electronic. But I decided fast that summer, I don't want to do that. My mom, meanwhile, is on a plane. So she got me that job. Then a few months later, my mom is on a plane, sits next to a casting director, doesn't know, starts talking to her, and she says, yeah, I'm a casting director. My mom goes, my daughter wants to be in casting. I'd never mentioned that. But my mom is so smart. She's like, I'm going to get her in there. She got me a job interview, like a informational interview with my future boss, Joey Paul, who was the casting director on That's So Raven, the original That's So Raven on Disney. So I met with her like a month before I graduated college. She said, you can intern for me. So a week after I graduated in 2003, I started working there, and I quickly became paid and an assistant and moved up the ranks. So I worked in the Disney world, the That's So Raven and a bunch of different shows. And then I went on as an associate, which is your next step up, for a bigger office that did a lot of shows for the WB, CW, Reba. They were doing a lot of Kevin Williamson shows, which was actually, like, funny story, he did Dawson's Creek and Scream and Vampire Diaries, Kevin Williamson, but he also, at the time, we did a pilot called Hidden Palms. It was a 6-episode pilot, and we pre-read, meaning before we brought her to producers, Amber Heard.
Oh my
The
gosh.
Amber Heard of the Johnny Depp story, right? And she walked in that room, and I was like, "Mhm. I'm obsessed with you. Like, I wanna have sex with you." It's so crazy when you meet these young actors that are such big stars now, you know it. Like, they have it. They have it. I don't know how to explain it. But
Mhm.
anyway, and then when I was 26, I had a girlfriend who, was offered a show as a casting director, but didn't wanna do it alone. It was her first show, and she came to me and she said, "Do you wanna partner up?" And I was like, "Oh my god." So I had to meet with Disney and do the whole interview thing, and at 26 years old, we got our first show, The Sweet Life on Deck, which is Zach and Cody, whatever. They're popular for younger kids. But, so I was the youngest scripted
Wow.
casting director, 26 years old, and then we won awards for that. Like, it was a crazy we were lucky. I mean, we worked our asses off. We were young. We weren't married. We didn't have kids. I think that benefited us. I think producers loved that we were married to our work. And then what happened was, as time went on, so that was 2007, but about 2016 was my last year casting. Things had changed so much.
Mm.
There were so many cooks in the kitchen, so many politics, and we were working our butt off to find these actors like Zendaya from nothing, and then they would get the job, and Disney would go to, the interviews being like, "Well, when we found Zendaya," and I'm like,
No,
"Wow,
me,
that sucks."
Donna. I'm the we.
So casting directors, like, forever and ever will never get credited the way that they deserve. They don't get the Oscar, they don't get the Emmy, like, maybe they get an Emmy actually, I can't remember. But it's an unsung, like, an un what's the word? Um, like, it's one of those careers that you don't get credited for. It's kind of like you're doing the dirty work, but no one gives you the love, and you're the first to blame when things go wrong, you
Oh,
know?
oh yeah. Yeah, well, and we were talking earlier about love language, words of affirmation. I don't think anybody needs or is entitled to constant words of affirmation, but again, there's some parallels to my start in journalism where, the first thing that would happen after a newscast, it didn't matter that we were first on with a particular story or we had a beautiful, it was, hey, why was the weather guy's tie backwards or why was the microphone cut off
Mhm.
in the first 5 seconds or, why wasn't this story ahead of this? And I think it sounds to me like part of the job they're sort of baked in. You're going to hear about the things that they didn't like or that were problematic rather than someone leading the conversation with you. Donna, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just found Zendaya. She's so great. And also this feedback is that when I know we were joking earlier, but when you talk about, what lights you up inside, are there patterns that you've seen in that role or even as you have now shifted and gone into the life of being a business owner and an entrepreneur? Are there things that you feel like, okay, this makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons?
Yeah, you know what's so funny is I always used to say this. I didn't realize this at the very beginning, but towards the last couple of years. So we were casting a show called Stuck in the Middle for Disney. It was my last Disney project, and that was bringing Jenna Ortega, who ended up being Wednesday, bringing her to the Disney Channel. Now she had done a couple of things. We didn't discover her, but we brought her uh, in for this role for the lead of the show, and that was a really weird time for me. I was pregnant with my second kid. It was 2015 at that time, and we were working in a really crappy office. That was another thing about casting. They kind of put you wherever they can find you, like unless you want to pay for your own offices, which most casting directors don't want to because you're so freelance, right? You want the production to kind of house you during that time, and so we were working in a shitty office. It felt, like, unsafe at night. I remember being like, "I don't wanna be here late at night because it's creepy," which is a lot of these, like, production facilities. It wasn't like a fancy you think Hollywood, you're like, "Oh, you're on the Sony lot or, like, the Fox lot." Sometimes we were, but sometimes we really weren't. We were, like, in Deep Valley. And, and I remember, missing a lot of time at home with my young kids and thinking, wait, why am I doing this anymore? And what I realized was the obsession that I had over casting was always I loved getting the call saying you have a job interview or like we
Mhm.
want you to meet on this project. I loved getting that call. It was like, yes. I loved coming up with ideas for the meeting for producers because that's what you do. You read the script, you like come out. So I like the creativity of that.
Mhm.
I loved meeting with the producers and just showing the F off and getting the job, and then I hated doing the job. Like, I actually hated casting. I hated sitting for 10 hours a day watching shitey talent,
Mhm.
right? Like, you watch a lot of crap before you get to the good. I hated that process, and then I did like when we found someone good, but, like, that's, a diamond in the rough. You have to go through a lot of bad. Then I like the idea of presenting the good. Like, I liked the tying it up in a bow and showing it, but I hated doing paperwork. Oh,
That's still
hated
the
the
case, by
paperwork
the
part.
way, listeners. This is why I love working with Donna so much because she's the visionary. And then she's like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next big game changing thing? And I'm like, oh, but all of this admin stuff needs to do. I think this is why we get
Yep.
along so well, Donna, because I don't have the big ideas that you have, but I know that in order for you to continue to have the impact that you deserve and that your community deserves, there's that back end work. So I love that that was a pattern that you recognized early on.
I seriously, I'm the worst assistant you can ever have. Like, I would awful at doing the things, sometimes I have a bill for $7 that sits on my counter. I look at it every day. It's $7. I don't want to pay it. I don't know how to. This is something that I have to like go to therapy for because I need a personal assistant just to do my paperwork. But anyway, yeah, so I realized like if this is something what happened was there was one point where I came home to my husband and he was in our backyard and I said to him, "Do you like what you do?" And he was a camera operator, he still is, he works in reality TV. And he was like, "Yeah." Like, no question. He was like, "Yeah, I love what I do." And he really still does, years and years later. I mean, he doesn't like every aspect of it, but for in general, he really enjoys his job. And I said, "Is something wrong with me? Because I don't like my career anymore. I don't like what I do. I'm not, like, dying to go to work. I don't wanna give it my extra time after work. I wanna like, I can't wait to go home." That's a bad sign, you know? And I was young. I was in my 30s. Like, it's not like I'm jaded and 65, you know? I was just starting, really. And he said, "Yeah, you may wanna look into that." And I realized, like, my life is way too short to hate what I do. And then you know what? When you hate what you do, guess what happens? You do shitty at
Yeah,
it.
you really
And you
do.
start yeah, and, like, your clients start recognizing it, right? Like, I think my producers started to feel that I wasn't passionate about it. My mind was already like, "What else is there?" Right? So that's who I am. I'm always like, "What's next? What's next?" Which is scary a little bit because, like, I should just be happy where I am, but I don't know if I'll ever be.
It was funny, I was listening to an interview with Jane Fonda recently. I think she was talking with Julia Louis-Dreyfus or with Dax Shepard, 2
Oh,
podcasters that I have really enjoyed their
I
shows.
need to listen
Um
to her show. It's been
It's
charting like
so good.
crazy.
Yeah, Julia
Really?
Louis-Dreyfus, yep, so you would, I mean, obviously, I think our listeners probably know her both from Seinfeld and Veep and from New Adventures of Old Christine and a million other projects, but this one is particularly interesting because she's specifically talking to older women and kind of combating this idea that as you get into what Jane was referring to as the 3rd act, the sort of last
Mm.
third of your life, that you're supposed to diminish and get ready to die. And, there's just I don't plan to do that. And I know you don't either, Donna. But what Jane said was, it's been rattling around in my brain because she was talking about her marriage to Ted Turner, and she said in general with all of her marriages, she knew, even though she was, deeply in love with these people and really loved, like, respected them as people, and she just knew that this was not her future. And so she said
Mm.
that the sign to her that the end of the relationship was imminent was when she was quite literally thinking about their funerals. Not in a morbid way, or just thinking about, okay, like, when this is over, here's how this will look, and then here's how I'll move forward. And she realized she was sort of planning for the next stage after their funerals, when that's probably not a good sign. And you were just talking about, like,
No.
when you're thinking about, like, what's next, or like, how do I get
Yeah.
through this so that I can move on to the next thing. And so I love piecing these stories together with you, because the Donna that so many people know, and I think your community is so beautiful and special because they have seen you through a lot of these iterations, maybe not every stage, but you're the people who are now listening to you on Daily Dose of Donna every day and who are engaging with you there were also with you on Clubhouse, or have
Mhm.
also followed your journey through
Do you know I have a
the
lot of
casting world.
listeners I have a lot of listeners who are either talent agent and managers that I worked with, and also I have a lot that are parents of actors who I coached and auditioned.
That's so
So it is really
interesting.
crazy. They have, like, stuck with me throughout.
Yeah, there's something, and I don't say this, just because, again, I love you so desperately, but I think there's a pattern that I see in business leaders, and I don't just mean business like, what is my revenue and what's my offer, but just like people who are able to resiliently move through and continue to engage with their audience. And there's something about being a magnetic personality. And it sounds like you were talking about that really with the celebrities that you had crushes on and were following, and even to this day there's something to do with being a magnetic personality. So I'd love, and I think, to be totally fair, you have so much ahead of you. I do not think Daily Dose of Donna is the final step for you. I think it's an incredibly exciting one, but I know that you might send me a note tomorrow saying, like, I just came up with this killer new idea, and, like, I'm going to be on that ride with you, Donna. Your audience is going to be
Yeah,
on
you
that
have no
ride.
choice.
I mean, I'm there, but I would love, it seems to me, like, I don't want to say any of this was written on the wall or was predetermined for you, but the little girl who walked around with the recording device and was vlogging and podcasting, who then moved into casting, who moved into all of these things, it almost feels like there were pieces of all of those stages that you picked up and sort of added to yourself that ultimately makes you such a great podcast host and a multi hyphenate of other things. But does that feel to you like when you look back, even when there were tough times, you had to lay off people on your team, you quit a job in an industry and you didn't necessarily know what was next? Do you feel like there were pieces of each of those that you took that got you to where you are today?
I think it's 100% the case, and also, that is my almost consolation for anyone that is struggling in their career or in their position where they are now because they are getting something from it. Like, do I look back at my 9 months of being an agent, which I didn't even get to with you, but I was an agent and representing actors for the last year before I started my own business. And I hated every second of it again. I don't know why I thought things were gonna be different this time, but there was something that I learned from that. Even when you're in a horrible situation, even if you're going through, God forbid, like a divorce or a death in the family or something, you're getting something from it, that resilience, that, you know, that eye-opening moment or whatever. I do think it kind of comes full circle. I do. I think that, you know, had I not gone the casting route, had I not gone the starting your own business and being an Instagram coach, I mean, can you believe that that's what I was doing? I was helping people on Instagram. I don't think I would have been where I am now. But what people always like to tell me, and I appreciate it so much, is that when they listen to my podcast, they don't even know anything about what I'm talking about, maybe. Like, they may not even watch reality TV. And that happens for a lot of my listeners. But they just say, like, you can talk about the phone book, and I just want to hear you talk because it feels so relatable and real. And that's not put on. That is really just coming from a place of, I've been in all those stages. Like, I've been the girl that, was anxious and had massive panic attacks and didn't want to show up and didn't want to talk. I've been the girl that had no money when all my friends in Beverly Hills had all the money. I've been the girl that, was the ugly duckling when all my friends had the boyfriends. I've been the one that, was the life of the party. I've been the one that uh has no problem now standing up in front of a workout class and dancing. Like, it's crazy, the iterations just of who you become and your confidence and whatnot. So I do think, like, an a there is a weird connection. It's all supposed to happen in this weird way. And I agree with you. I don't think this is the end. I think Daily Dose of Donna will grow to something or change to something else. And, I will be sending you a message probably in the next few months. You're going to be like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Setting up your email funnel.
That's my favorite thing to do. And I will say, for listeners who don't have the privilege of knowing Donna the way that I do, Donna, one of the things that I think should really inspire people is that you've shared some real vulnerabilities and some tough times, but in general, you're such a positive person. And even as you've been sharing these steps, I think you've been able to say, and here's what was great, and here's what I learned. But I've worked with you and known you and been your friend when you felt out of alignment. And my sense is that, like everybody else who's listening, you've said, okay, the play is to be a video branding coach. Okay, I'm going to do that. The play is to launch a course. I'm going to do that. The play is to do this and that. And even where there were successes, my sense from knowing you is that the times when you have tried to do what everyone else is doing or tried to do what seems right, there's been a misalignment. And when you do things like, hey, I'm just going to randomly start a pop culture podcast and see what happens, that takes off because it's authentically you. So if there's somebody right now who is maybe in the struggles, I just launched something, it's not going the way I want. I have put out an offer, or I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z because it's working for this other person. It's not working for me. What would you say to them about sort of the pros and cons of trusting your gut and just doing the thing that's fun?
So, like, I could write a book on the
I hope
mistakes
you
we've
will, by
made
the way. I think
at
that's
some
the
point.
next, that might
You
be
know
the next
me.
big project.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on book tour with Andy Cohen. 100%. I have had some massive failures, especially in the last couple of years. Now, I don't know if it's um, because of the way that the industry is going or the market or inflation, and people are scared to spend money, and what I was offering was not a necessity, like, but it was a luxury. Like, for example, hiring you are doing done for you services, and my business for the most part is was in the coaching consulting space, and I do think that's a luxury. Here's another thing. I'm just going to be 100% honest. Not everyone can be amazing on video, and not everyone can be amazing in podcasting. And when, like, working with people as a coach and a consultant sometimes feels like you're failing because at the end of the day, you can't change who the person is, their personality. And that's why some people are magnetic and some people aren't. Do I think that everyone should try? Yes. But some people just are not going to succeed. Some people are just not as good with creating content, etc. And that was hard for me as a coach. But I also realized I have always struggled with wanting approval, right?
Mhm.
I've always struggled with wanting approval from multiple people, but like specifically my mom. Okay. I think I've grown out of that. I think I finally have grown out of it. But when I first started Daily Dose of Donna, my mom sat me down and she was like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, you're talking about celebrities. Like, this is stupid. You got to stop. This is so stupid." And I thought to myself for the first time, like, I know inside that this is bigger than that. I know that this is something that will do well because it feels so good for me to do it. And then every day the numbers were proving me. I remember about 30 days into my podcast, I talked to my friend Molly and I said, "What the am I doing? What am I doing? This is insane. I'm an insane person. Like, I'm still running Show Up on Video. I'm still a video coach. Why am I talking about, Real Housewives? Like, what am I doing?" And she was like, "Donna, look at your numbers. Like, look at the
Mhm.
stats." My first month on my podcast had the entire month of January. So I started January 6th. My entire month was 400 something listens. And last month, which was April, had 12,000 plus listens. Like, it's growing. And now we're halfway through May and I'm already like 80% to that number. So it's clearly the numbers are showing you the way. But if you're in a position right now and you're listening and you're like, I know that, I decided I'm going to become a coach and I am going to help people. And if that's something that you really can't imagine not doing, it's something you're called to do. It's something that you know you have to do it. But if it's something that you think, hey, my coach is doing really well,
Mhm.
so I think I should be a coach too. Good luck. Good luck in life. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think like the coaching world is gonna take a massive nosedive over the next 5 years. Like, I'm not I'm not hiring a coach. Is that bad to
Yeah.
say out loud, Katie?
No, and I was gonna say, if people are listening, as I have shared multiple times, Donna is a predictor of the future. Like, Donna looks into the look into the
The
ball
crystal
what do you
ball.
call it? Yeah, I don't you are able to see into the future and really, like, get a sense and then iterate. And so the other thing that is a huge takeaway for me just listening to you talk about that is that I'm seeing this as a biased back end person. Like, my job with you and with my clients is to help them take their content and accelerate it and amplify it. But the thing is, Donna, you haven't had to do much of that. Like, everything that it has attracted to people to you and has gotten them to subscribe and then also go over to your YouTube page, which has exploded, and like engage with you, talk back to you. It's not because you had a beautiful email funnel or you had, SEO and all of the things. It's because you're passionate about what you're talking about. And like you said, you're into it enough that you're doing the content because you are also excited to hear about it and to talk about it. You're not thinking strategically, oh, what happened over here on Vanderpump Rules? I better figure out what I'm going to say to my audience. And so for people that are thinking, okay, sure, but it's got to be the perfect framework, the perfect platform, the perfect system. I'm telling you, as a systems person, absolutely not. Like, throw that out. Just do whatever. The ability to niche down in 2023 and beyond has really blown my mind because there is not a topic, and TikTok is a great example. There's not a topic in the world right now that you can't talk about that someone else wants to hear about. It doesn't matter how silly or small or whatever it is.
There's a lid for every pot. And honestly, like what you just said is really important. The reason why coaching is going to struggle, especially in the social media coaching landscape, and I say this because I say this with love because a lot of them are my friends, but this is just as a consumer, this is what I think. Because no longer can you tell someone, this is how to create the perfect TikTok. Go use a hook. And I'm saying 6 months ago it worked, but that's how fast things change. And you can still try to do the hook. But let's be honest, anytime you see a TikTok where it's like, here's 5 ways that I'm gone. So if you don't have it innately in you to want to just share, like you would call a friend and pick up a friend and be like, you wouldn't even understand what I just learned. But it's not, that's why it's so hard to teach
Mhm.
virality or teach marketing or teach anything like that because it's literally trial and error. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And yesterday I had a TikTok that got 400 views. And 2 days ago, I had a TikTok that got 500,000 views.
Yeah.
There's no predictor on why it does well. The only thing we can do is keep trying, keep throwing your hat in the ring, right?
I love that. And I'm so appreciative that you shared all of that because I think you are doing it in public too. You're not only talking about these shifts and these iterations that you made, but people are able to actually see and cheer you on. And I think there are too few, and I'm always challenging myself to be more transparent. There are too few of us who have decided to be public in some way, decided to have platforms. Too few of us are talking about those challenges, and that's why I'm so appreciative that you were willing to chat with me today. So I'm gonna wrap it up with just a couple of quick lightning round questions. The first
Let's
one,
do it.
so I love a mantra, I love a quote. I've got a whole stable full of things that I'll pull out, but one that constantly comes to mind for me is the rising tide lifts all boats. I say this on a near daily basis in some scenario. Is there a particular phrase or a quote or a mantra that is sort of your North Star?
I wish there was. I actually don't. You know me. I would probably have a new one every month. Lately I've been saying I have the F it syndrome, which is basically like everything I want to do and I get a little bit hesitant to or wonder what the end is going to be or how it's going to turn out or where the money's going to come in or where this and that. No, I say F it. I say
F it.
F it because it hasn't gone wrong yet. Like I will fail and it's not like, money's getting poured on my face right now, but I say I know that it will happen because right, Katie, we're so lucky. Everything happens
You're
for
so
us.
lucky. I was gonna say lucky girl syndrome. We're both suffering or like taking advantage of lucky
Blessed
girl
with.
syndrome.
We are blessed with lucky girl
Blessed
syndrome.
with. Okay, F it. I like it because it's so clear, concise, and to the point. Okay,
F
speaking
it.
of clear, concise, and to the point, iPhone or Android?
iPhone, what? What kind of a
I mean, I
question
know
was
this to
that?
be true, but I am surprised there are a few people that I've been speaking with that are like, "Nope, I'm Samsung for life," and I don't understand it.
Okay,
I'm
good luck with
iPhone.
that. Green text messaging is not for me.
No. Okay, social media platform, what is your favorite? I know this is a little bit of tough one because you're active on so many, but right now, if you had to pick up your phone and say, "For fun, I'm gonna go on this one," which would it be right now?
TikTok. TikTok,
TikTok.
100%. YouTube, I don't consider a social media platform, actually. So TikTok and Instagram is far behind that, but it's still there. I like stories, but yeah, TikTok.
Okay. If you were to take a 3-month sabbatical from your business, from your life, and this can take any form or fashion, and there's no negative consequence, you're not having to do this on a budget, where would you go? What would you do? What would 3 months break from your normal life look like?
It would be so hard for me, number one, because I really struggle going on vacation. But we know this about me. But if I forced myself and then got into the mode, yeah, I mean, I would probably, if money wasn't an issue, I would probably do a huge European jaunt, and then I'd want to live in New York for a little bit.
You've conquered Hollywood. We need to get you in Manhattan. And
I
also,
just want to walk downstairs and go to a bodega.
I'm seeing you as like Billy Eichner, but like Donna on the street with your maybe it's even the old school recorder with the wired microphone. You're just walking up to celebrities in New York City. Okay, I think maybe we can put that on the backlog of projects to work on.
Working on
Two
it.
last questions. Is there a particular fear that you have? And this could be a fear of heights or a bigger philosophical fear like being a bad mom.
Mm, definitely being a bad mom, but I think I probably already have like checked that one off the box a few times. I would say my biggest fear is failure and poverty. I have a money fear. I'm scared of lack of money, but it doesn't stop me enough from doing the scary thing.
Yeah, F it.
F it. F
Okay,
it.
last one. Do you have a signature coffee order?
Yes. Don't freak out over this, okay?
Okay, I'm excited
It's a
to hear it.
grande. It's a
Okay.
grande triple shot oat milk latte, but here's the kicker, and this is gonna sound extra sweet, but the brown sugar syrup at Starbucks is a half pump. So I get 5 pumps of brown sugar syrup, but it's really like 2.5 pumps of
Okay.
sweetener.
And this, folks, is how she's able to host a daily podcast, run a successful business, be a mom of two, have all of the things going on. Okay, Donna, I love you desperately and
I love
dearly.
you
You are
more.
truly one of my favorite people. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And I'm just really thankful that you are doing what you're doing. And I am so thankful to be along for the ride with you.
Oh my God, I love you, Katie. You're amazing. You're literally my favorite person to talk to about anything business. And I always appreciate you
All right.
sticking with my craziness.
Love you, mean it.
I love you too. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.